Hey, everybody, welcome. I'm Paul James Johnson, and thank you for being here. What you're about to watch is an online meeting held a couple of weeks before the 2026 Cocodona 250, 250 miles on foot from Phoenix to Flagstaff. This is the crew and the pacers sitting down together to introduce themselves and to walk through some of the key things that go into getting a runner through a race like this: pacing, sleep, nutrition, navigation, and the mindset it takes to keep going when everything in you wants to stop. Two quick notes before we start. My crew chief, CJ Johnson, was with us for this meeting, but a technical failure cost us his video and audio, so you won't see or hear him in this one. And my pacer, Jillian Pizzimenti, couldn't make it due to a scheduling conflict. Both of them are a huge part of this team, and you'll hear them mentioned throughout. If you find this valuable, and I hope you will, whether you're a runner, a crew member, or you just love a good endurance story, do me a favor and hit that like button and subscribe. This channel follows the whole journey of the 2026 Cocodona, chapter by chapter, and subscribing is how you'll get every part of it. Your likes genuinely help more people find these stories. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple, a follow and a rating helps a lot. And I'd love to hear from you in the comments. A couple of things you might weigh in on. Late in last year's race, at 9,000 feet in the dark, I was seeing Picasso paintings on the trail, and my pacer JJ just calmly told me to keep moving. Have you ever hallucinated from sleep deprivation? Tell me about it in the comments. And here's another. How much sleep do you think a person actually gets across a 250-mile race? I'll tell you my real number inside. Drop your guess in the comments. All right, let's get to it. Here's the crew and the pacers for the 2026 Cocodona 250. My name is Paul James Johnson. I'm a 69-year-old Michigan trial attorney. I started running ultramarathons at age 59, and in the 10 years since, I've run about 40 of them, including a dozen 200-mile ultramarathons like the Cocodona 250, the Arizona Monster 300, the Bigfoot 200, the Divide 200 in the Canadian Rockies, the Summit 200 in Colorado High Country, and the Moab 240. In less than 2 weeks, I start my sixth Cocodona 250, 250 miles on foot from Phoenix to Flagstaff, across some of the most stunning and unforgiving terrain in North America. And here is what I know after 10 years of doing this. The runner crosses a finish line that is built by the team. It's built in the crew vehicle at 2 in the morning. It's built at an aid station when you're broken and someone hands you food you didn't ask for, but desperately need it. It's built in the miles someone else runs alongside you in the dark when you can no longer trust your own eyes or your own judgment. I want to introduce you to the people who will build that finish line with me at 2026 Cocodona 250. CJ Johnson. Our crew chief is my son, CJ Johnson, a veteran of more races than either of us can count, who has crewed me on every major ultramarathon I have run for the last 3 years in multiple countries. Troy Ide, my pacer from Whiskey Row to Mingus Mountain, and again from Jerome to Dead Horse Ranch. Troy Ide is Colorado's former United States Attorney, a national expert in Native American law, an accomplished ultramarathon competitor, and the host of the Chasing the Cutoff podcast. Jillian Pizzimenti, my pacer from Mingus Mountain to Jerome and from Sedona to Schnebly Hill. Jillian Pizzimenti has logged more than 500 kilometers of pacing alongside me across 5 ultramarathons and may be the best night pacer I have ever run with. Unfortunately, Jillian was unable to join us for this meeting, but we will see her at Cocodona. J.J. Johnson, my pacer from Dead Horse Ranch to Sedona, is my son, J.J. Johnson, who once bought a last-minute flight across the country just to show up and pace me through the night. And finally, Mark Vega, my pacer from Munds Park to Wildcat Hill, is an Army veteran, Los Angeles entertainment attorney, stroke survivor, and the host of Run Long After 60, a podcast built on the conviction that age is not a barrier to doing hard things. So this is the all-star crew. Now, let's talk about what it takes to move one 69-year-old from Phoenix to Flagstaff. Let's turn first to J.J. Johnson. J.J., you flew across the country on a last-minute flight to pace me at Bigfoot 200 after watching the live tracker from your studio. You've been part of this crew at some of the hardest moments in my racing history. What in the world keeps bringing you back?
I mean, you're my dad. You picture your dad out there on a mountain going 200 miles. Come to think of it, I remember I used to tell people, I can't believe he's going this far. If something happens, God forbid, I'm going to be there when it happens. Now, I found out from going to the races that you're fine. But that was how it started.
Got it. Okay, so I'm your dad, and there's something unique about pacing your own father. I mean, at mile 160 of a 250-mile race, I'm not the same person who raised you. I'm someone running on fumes, making really, really bad decisions, maybe even hallucinating, and you've been there with me when I've been hallucinating. How do you hold both of those realities in your hand? The father you know and that you grew up with, and the runner in front of you who was out of his mind?
You don't really think about it. When we're out there pacing you, it's really a moment of just you're in the present, and it's what's going on that race. So the big picture, inspirational side of it being you, and you're going through it, you're really going through it. It's more from the pacer perspective, just talking to whoever came in last, who was pacing you, what's going on with him, how's he doing? And we usually exchange some intel and what you might need for the next section, or it might be what you're going to need. CJ always needs really good information, especially for your sleep, your nutrition, all those things, but don't really think about balancing it too much. You're just trying to keep an eye on your runner.
At the 2025 Arizona Monster, the race last year, somewhere as we were climbing Mount Lemmon in the Santa Catalina's mountains, you told me, and actually you told a couple of runners who were with us, this is the best day of my life. And this was during a time where we were literally doing a 45-degree uphill climb that had no end in sight. So I'm wondering, where did that come from? And what do you think it does to a runner when their pacer says something like that and actually means it?
Yeah, I meant it. It was. I could say for sure, top 10 lifetime best moments. I don't know, maybe like 8 of them are on those trips. Something like that. It's like, it is the best. When are you going to get that again? First of all, how many dads are doing what you're doing? Very few. And then to get to be there, and then to be going straight up a mountain and just absolutely through hell. We're only going to get a couple hours, days like that ever. And so it's the truth. And it's good for you to hear that too. Because some of the aid stations, it can be traps because the runners will start saying, oh man, that one section was really hard. Yeah, you're right, it was. And it's easy to see that mental frame, even with the most positive people, which these are the most positive people and the most optimistic people, seeing that. So when anybody asks, I just think that is the answer.
So I've actually used that phrase with other runners and pacers during races, and it definitely gets their attention when you say something like that, especially during a very, very hard section. If you can orient your brain and your mind to the fact that this is the best day of my life. What I'm doing right now is so cool. But on that climb up Mount Lemmon, you also offered not only me, but the other runners a sort of a mental or psychological strategy. Myself and the other runners, we couldn't wait to get to the summit, get over that summit and start descending because it was so hard. But you had said that, you know what, in my mind, I triple the distance of the climb before I start it, so that anything less than that tripling becomes a bonus. Tell me, where did that come from? That's amazing.
That comes from just trying to manage expectations. You, for example, like the numbers. So everybody should know this on the call. If you haven't paced Dad before, he likes to know how many kilometers he has left. He's a mechanic. And he'd be a guy, if he was throwing a no-hitter, he'd want to know his stats while throwing the no-hitter. So tell him the opposite of how I would approach it. I don't want to know the number. The mental frame going out is, okay, it could be a 13 miler, 20, whatever it is. We're going to be doing this till this time tomorrow. So all of a sudden it changes from the race to like, wow, look at nature. Look how good this is. And then it goes by faster, but you're having a better time. And I think that's where it comes from.
Taking you to the Moab 240 a couple of years ago, your runner, me, didn't want to leave the chair at the Needles aid station. And you basically pushed me out. I was hanging out with people I knew there. I just wanted to stay there. And so how do you know when to push someone who really doesn't want to be pushed, and when that push is a right call? How do you make that?
Well, the race plan, this meeting here and the other things we talk about going into it, your race plan was stay out of the aid stations. They're a trap. You're a popular guy. You go into an aid station, we've got to get people away from you. Try to let you have your time and then but guide it, and especially later in the race. And yeah, you just stick to the plan. And I think when you add up all those aid stations, all the minutes and the goals that you have, it's always a good idea. You have it every time, smaller and smaller amounts of time in the aid stations. So I think it's just going off your orders on that.
Taking you to the Cocodona from last year, 2025, you were pacing me up and over Mount Eldon there in the last 10, 15 miles of the 250-mile race, in that final night of the race in the dark at 9,000 plus feet. And I was telling you that I was seeing Picasso paintings on the trail. And you calmly confirmed that there was nothing on the trail but footsteps. Just keep moving. What was going through your head when I was telling you that, no, I'm actually seeing this is amazing artwork on this trail? Aren't you seeing what I'm seeing?
Yeah, I was thinking, this is awesome. I mean, he is totally tripping. And how many times are we going to get to do this together like that? I looked hard. I tried to see what you were seeing, and I could see it. It looked kind of like you go into a cave in Egypt, maybe, or you're at some, archaeological dig, and on the walls they have paintings. I'm seeing stuff like that. So I'm seeing what you're putting down, picking it up. And yeah, the thought was mainly, this is awesome. And that was before we even went up the mountain. So mental note, going to keep a really close eye on Dad as we're going up, but more importantly, when we're going down, for sure.
So in this year's Cocodona race, your segment is from Dead Horse to Sedona, and we're going to be working our way through the Sedona Red Rock country maybe at night. Hopefully during the day, but maybe at night, after I've been on my feet for roughly 3 days. Knowing that's your segment, what are you preparing for, and what are you most ready to handle for that segment?
Oh, my strategy is no preparation. I like to not look at the segment at all. I'll think about it too much, drive myself crazy. And so no preparation whatsoever. And then really get hyper focused on how you're doing and where you're at versus your goal going into it. And we'll try not to look, and would rather know the elevation gain and loss than whatever the number is. And so, yeah, that the preparation is just this right here, and then making sure that I'm there.
Thank you, JJ, for being part of our team.
Love you, Dad.
Love you too. Mark, let's turn to you. Mark Vega, our entertainment attorney from Los Angeles. You're an Army veteran. You host the Run Long After 60 podcast. You survived 2 major strokes in consecutive years in your early 50s, and then you started running. Tell us your story, because most people don't come back from 1 stroke, let alone 2, and decide the answer is ultramarathons.
First of all, I feel like even this moment I'm breathing rarefied air with you guys here. And I appreciate that I have the opportunity to do this and be here with you on the call. And also when I interviewed Paul on the podcast, during the podcast, he said, you know what? You're going to do 200s. I think I got an idea for you. You should pace me at Cocodona. It took me 2 seconds to say I'm in, and here we are. So I'm really grateful for that. I had ran in the military when I was a kid. I ran in high school, did the hurdles, and even was a pole vaulter, if you can believe that, because there were no pole vaulters and they had equipment, and I was happy to be able to use it. So I ran a lot, and then ran in the military, hurt both my knees, I thought, and I had arthroscopic surgery in both my knees. This is many, many years ago. Arthroscopic surgery has changed quite a bit in those years. But I had a stroke, as most strokes do. They catch you by surprise. I was just working. I'm a lawyer and had a law firm and a couple other active going businesses. And one day, all my words disappeared. As a lawyer, Paul, Troy, right? You can't have your words disappear, but that's what happened. So trying to be cool about it. And I went to a doctor, and they decided it was an embolic stroke of undetermined source. That's kind of a catch-all category, but I guess 3% of all strokes are that. What it really means is we don't know what caused it, we don't know how to prevent it, and we can't tell it's not going to happen again. So not that ever brings anyone confidence when you hear that story. That was the first diagnosis. But the doctor said, you can move a little bit. Why don't you try walking? And I said, I'm 51 at the time. If I have to go walking, I imagine myself inside a mall, with shoes. I said, I will poke my eyes out with pencils. That is not me. You can't do that. I used to run. Can I run? He said, sure, give her a go. So this is the summer of 2015. I start running and learn about zone 2 and all this stuff. And I think, you know what? I think I'm going to run a marathon. I'll prove to myself that I can do this. Stroking and nothing on me. I finished my last long run 6 months later. A month before the LA Marathon was going to be my first marathon ever on Valentine's Day, 2016 in LA. I'm the man. I finished a 20-mile run, never did such a thing before. Get to my kitchen, having a little lunch, and I drop down again. Second stroke. I can't pick up my utensils. I can't stand up. I can't do anything. My wife thinks she hears me, the commotion in the kitchen. She slides in the frame down the hallway like she's Tom Cruise in Risky Business, but instead of a hairbrush in her hand, she's got the phone in her hand. She said, Mark, stop talking. Shh, be quiet. I think you had another stroke. And I say, I didn't have another stroke. I'm fine. I just dropped a glass. But what she and other people in the house heard was something like, fast forward, second stroke, twice as big on the other side of my brain. What? I get lots of doctors, lots of people to help me understand this. Now, I'm a practicing lawyer, and I had told my most important clients, look, this just happened, but I think we'll be okay. But I didn't know what that meant. And then the second stroke happened. Thank God. All those same clients were like, you're insane, man. How can we help? What's going on? So I wasn't able to run that marathon, but a couple months later, a couple more doctors later, I now had the bug because I'd already trained all that training just to run the marathon. Doctor said, okay, you can do it again. When? November, December. I said, November? He said, yeah. November. He said, yeah. So I looked at my phone in the neurologist's office, and I'm like, how about New York? Can I do that? He said, sure. I had no idea what New York Marathon meant. I didn't know it was the biggest kahuna of all kahunas. I didn't know, and I didn't care. I signed up. Too slow, but I raised money for the Stroke Association, finished that first marathon, November 2016. I did it. I come across the line in the dark. I'm way super slow, but I don't care. I break down and cry because I didn't stroke out. I didn't have friends and family around either because I was afraid that we didn't know what was going to happen. So I survived, and that was good. I later learned by asking a friend, because I kept running. I asked a friend, is it my imagination when I run on the cement and the asphalt? It's very different. Cement's very hard, asphalt's soft. He said, yeah, that's a true statement. You ever hear of trail running? I said, no, what's that? He told me what it was, and I said, oh, sign me up. I think you run on the dirt. It's going to be much easier on your knees and your bones, right? He said, yeah. So that took me toward the trails. And soon enough, my Griffith Park, which is close to my house, had a trail race. Kira Henninger, KH Races, she still puts on great races. She had a race in Griffith Park, and I tried it, did a 30K. I thought, oh, this is good, but I still got lots of energy. So then I did a 50K, best, coolest, fun, most fun run ever. And after that, it's the spring of 2019, I get pretty excited, and I start doing more and more races. 2024, though, I'm done. I think I'm going to hang up my shoes. I did 50Ks. What else I need to do? I watch a guy, old guy, at the time, he wasn't as old as this guy, Paul James Johnson, but guy comes across the aid station at the 92-mile marker, and I'm standing there like a volunteer with a quesadilla. Hey, man, you want a quesadilla? No, man, I don't have time for that. I got to go. I'm like, wait, how old are you? I think he said like 64. I'm like, 64? What are you doing? He said 100 miles, and he just took off. And in that moment, gents, I said to myself, I stepped aside, talked to myself out loud. Mark, what are you doing? You can't be done yet. Look at this guy. What is this? Well, the Iona Divide. I'm going to do that. I'm going to come back and do it. So in that moment, I started thinking I'm going to run long distances. And I did. I started to run longer and longer and longer. But I get the bug, and I'm paying attention. And thanks to Aravipa and Mount Outpost and Jamil Curry, what's the thing that really got me even into this moment? There are two old dudes and a woman, right? Kevin Flieger, Paul James Johnson, and Stephanie Irving. They finished Cocodona in their 60s. This is just, last year, 2025. Paul had already done it a couple times. I didn't know. When I saw you go through, though, Paul, when I realized the stats that you had amassed up to that point in time, that's why I got really hooked. So that's a long-ass story. I didn't want to zip through the strokes because they're very real. And even to this day, there are artifacts. Sometimes I'm in a run, something happens, and I'm like, is that an artifact from the stroke? Like what? So it's never that far behind me, and I'm not pretending like I've licked it, but all I do know is that we don't know what caused them, both of them. We don't know how to prevent them. We don't know if they're going to happen again. So I'm really glad to be here right now.
And we are happy that you came through that okay, for sure. What an experience. So I've had a chance to listen to a lot of your guests on your podcast, and you've talked to a lot of great ultra runners in their 60s and learned what it's like to be out there. Now, here at Cocodona, you're going to be pacing the Munds Park to Wildcat Hill segment, which comes, it's late in the race. In fact, it's the last segments that can actually be paced, because when we go over Mount Eldon, all runners have to go over solo without a pacer due to this Mexican spotted owl and this endangered species. So you're coming in late, and it could be dark for sure. Flagstaff is still several hours away. What's the gap between what you've heard runners describe and what you're actually preparing for those segments?
I got to say, I'm listening to you and listening to Troy Ide. The more I hear runners like you talk about the second and third and fourth version of what happens to your body and what's going on, the more confident I am that though a virgin to this endeavor with a 200-mile race, I'm really happy to be here. I've crewed at 100-mile races with my coach, actually, and I think you taught me that the art of distraction is critically important. So as a runner, it's important because you got to stay focused here. And thanks to JJ's comments, my gut tells me that the same thing is true. I've got to be really ultra focused. The art of the distraction is stay exactly where I'm at when I'm there. And my job per JJ, right, is to I've got one job, make sure that it's not just me executing the art of distraction, but it's also with my runner. So I've listened to your solo recordings. When I've interviewed you, you told me that you take your own recordings about the course and you take it with you and you play it back for yourself to remind yourself, oh, what should I do after Mingus? What do I do each time? And you even said in the podcast that you just play it out loud and there's guys out on the run with you, realizing it's your voice already talking about educating those around you about what we're going to do next. We're here at Mingus now. I thought that was fascinating. So I've practiced in a way. I do a lot of overnight runs. I love overnights, and not in the Arizona mountains yet, but I do love the solo, quiet, outside places. And I've experienced enough with coyotes, not wolves and not mountain lions, but certainly I understand how to run around and with and through and avoid, just as they avoid me, coyotes. And so I think that's what it is, Paul. I'm studied your comments and commentary and Troy's, listened closely to the way he retold his stories as well. And I think I'll be sufficiently prepped. Plus, I know that I can trust CJ and JJ now. So as soon as I get there and they shave my head, I think I'll just listen to everything they say and I'll follow their lead.
For sure. And they will shave your head. So, Mark, you're scheduled to run, I believe it's the Bigfoot 200 in Washington in August, which I might add is probably the most beautiful 200-mile race that I can think of. And you're in for a real treat. But I think you're 62 and you're about to pace a segment at Cocodona that is part of one of the hardest races in North America. So I'm curious, when you line up at Munds Park and we head out and you're looking at the trail ahead, what is going through your mind?
In some ways, thank you for that, Paul. In some ways, it's just another Wednesday, right? I think it's really critical for me. While I appreciate the outside and where we're at and appreciate the moment, and I live in gratitude, all of those things I'm carrying with me, those are the arrows in my quiver. But I think for me to stay grounded as we start, it's an adventure for sure, but I bring in the tool set for myself that says, you know what? Here we go. Let's get down to business. Just another Wednesday. Let's go. And I think that's the best way for me to stay grounded and shake out nervous energy or anything else, right? That's how I bring that kind of energy to anything I start. And this will be no different. However, what will I have learned from Troy, from JJ, from CJ, from you, right? All the hours and days that we've traversed between your start line and then I will be absolutely informed. As JJ said, I'm certain, right? Okay, Paul's doing this. Here's what is happening now. Here's what's going on now. And there's two layers. First layer is all the times you've ever paced and been with Paul. Here's how he does it. Second layer, what's actually happened in the last number of hours through these days, right? And while he's not really joking, guys, I clearly will be listening a lot more than I'm talking. Might feel contrary to this very moment, the way I conduct myself here, but I promise you, I'll be listening.
The Cocodona College is open for enrollment, but don't trust your professors. So, Mark, you've built your entire platform, your Run Long After 60 platform around these stories of endurance athletes. And when you've been out there in the dark with a sleep-deprived 69-year-old pushing toward Flagstaff, how do you think that changes the way you tell these stories?
Don't know. I don't know the answer to that question, but I'm really excited to kind of find out. So, because you tell the stories in the past tense. So after we explore and experience it, I'll bring whatever level of authenticity I can to kind of retell the story of what happened when we were out there together. And I look forward to be able to do just that. But I think my level of expectations will be developed and well honed. It'll be a separate new arrow in the quiver, supplied by the power and energy of CJ, JJ, and Troy, and you as we go through the race, right? Because I do have this sense, tell me if I'm wrong, Paul, that by the time you're at the end, I will not have the 30 miles in to 50 miles in, 50 to 75 miles. I won't have that experience with you, except to the extent you already told me that kind of story when I interviewed, when we spoke in the past. So I won't have that personal experience. What I'll have to rely upon is the stories and the learnings and the explanation and the education that this crew and my fellow pacers will be bringing to me. And I know they are eager to give me that information because I need it. It's my job. I get a single job to do, right? I'm just in the good, fortunate position to be able to take all their learnings and then bring it. And whatever ends up happening, it will be a fantastic story. I'll guarantee you that.
Thank you, Mark. I'm so glad you're on our team. Troy, I want to turn to you. You ran the inaugural Cowboy 200 with me on your 59th birthday.
That's true.
And I know you've raced the Sangre de Cristo, the Bighorn 100, Leadville, and recently Badwater Cape Fear. You host the Chasing the Cutoff podcast. Tell us what drew you to the 200-mile distance specifically.
Well, first,
I gotta get my pen ready because this is the wisdom bomb right here. Go ahead, Troy. Sorry.
Yes.
Thank you. So let me start by saying it's an honor to be here. Obviously, to meet CJ and JJ is a huge honor for me. I've heard about you. I heard about you gentlemen at great length on the Cowboy 200 when we first became acquainted, and Paul and I ran together for a very long time. We had a wonderful time. Paul is indeed the GOAT. I think that there is no one who is of his vintage that has achieved more in the sport than Paul has in terms of ultra marathons beyond 200 miles. I think he's the bomb. He's in a class of his own, a league of his own. And there are certain runners like that. Pamela Chapman Markle is one who is 70, just turned 70, and is a Badwater multiple veteran of the 135. But she's not running 200s. And so even the ones who are kind of famous out there, who've been at this for decades, are not Paul James Johnson. And Mark Vega, it's great to see you again. And I admire always, not just your podcast, but the fact that you're willing to put yourself really into the thick of things. And you absorb wisdom and knowledge like a sponge, but you also give it. And it's tremendous to be able to be involved in the same project as you. I'm looking forward to that very much as well. So, and if you hear jingling going on, it's because I have bear bells on both Churchill and Wyatt Earp, our two English springers. And since I've been gone for a week, I did the Badwater Salton Sea race, 81-mile race from the Salton Sea to the summit of Mount Palomar. And I just got home, and these dogs haven't seen me for a week. And so they're kind of excited to get reacquainted. But I'm just so looking forward to this venture very, very much. And Paul, I can't thank you enough for the invitation to get to do this. Several years ago, I think it was 2023, I was going to pace you. And I managed to both tear my ACL and sprain my MCL in the same fall, which was quite spectacular. And also had my knee doctor, who at the time was Peyton Manning's former knee doctor, quit on me and just say, you need to stop running, and this is kind of ridiculous, and why are you doing this? So I was really at sea because I didn't have the right physician, but I've been able to overcome that a bit and do the race across Scotland the last summer, 220, but ended up being 227 miles. I've got Moab on the calendar for October. I'm running across Switzerland, crossing Switzerland 400K in this July. And so I've got a big racing year, and I've had really wonderful success, thank Jesus Christ, in the two Badwater races so far this year. And I'm kind of excited about now potentially being able to perhaps get into Badwater 135 for next year. And if that happens, I'm going to just clear the deck and do that. But I would just say that it all comes down, Paul, for me, in terms of why I'm here. It's Ruth 1:16. And that's, as you recall, whither thou goest, I will go. And where thou lodgest, I will lodge. Thy people shall be my people, and thy God shall be my God. That's literally why I'm there. That's what I'm supposed to do. And I will do my best to not be anything other than an asset to you. And I'm training for it. And thank goodness, just had a super hot race, so hot that for the first time ever, my shoes melted in the Mojave Desert. By mile 40, I actually had lost all the rubber on my Saucony Bostons had come off, and I had half the midsole looking like toothpaste. It was so hot. So I think I'm starting to learn heat. I have all the Badwater ice gear now, and I've brought extras. So if anybody's missing some, I've got not just the bandanas, but the crazy hats that you stuff ice into and all that business. So if you have the ice, I'm ready to travel.
Thank you, Troy. I'm going to use the 3 Ps here. Your purpose is both profound and powerful. Thank you for that. And by the way, I hope to join you next year in 2027 when you're running across the country of Norway.
Yes, I'm excited about that. I think you'll have that privilege, Paul. We both will eat a lot of lutefisk, but hopefully it's fresh, catch and release lutefisk.
Yeah, and I've got Scandinavian roots, and both my grandfather and grandmother, they pulled out the lutefisk every Christmas season.
My grandmother has a
horrible.
T-shirt that says, "I support catch and release lutefisk."
There you go. So, Troy, you are at Cocodona this year. You're going to be pacing couple tough sections, the Whiskey Road to Mingus Mountain and Jerome to Dead Horse. And
Yes.
in that first segment, we're going to be going through the Dells, which is interesting to say the least, and also that brutal climb up Mingus Mountain when most runners' decision making at that point is definitely compromised. And so, as an ultramarathon runner yourself, with your experience, how do you approach the pacing for somebody that's going through those tough times that deep into the race?
Well, I think you've made it less difficult, Paul, because of the work, which is just an incredible, not just a journey that you're recording, but just also a tribute to a person's dedication to an activity, a sport, and to a race. It's just amazing to be able to tune in every week and see what you're doing. I'm getting a feel, although we haven't run together for a while, I'm getting a feel for how you do things, and I'm trying to learn from that. I watch the episodes when they come out. I watch them all the way through, but then I've watched each one of them, I think, at least 3 times. I'm trying to really understand you a little bit better and what you seem to really like, what maybe you don't like as well. And I'll try not to get on your nerves. And in terms of pacing, I think that I can run at whatever pace you think is appropriate for what we're doing. And I will do my best to conform to what you need. And if you want me to try to push you a bit, I'll push you. And if you don't, I won't. If you want to hike, I know you do a lot of hiking, and I respect that. And I do hiking too. And so if you want to hike or you want to hike and run on some pattern, when I get tired, I can do the metronome and do nothing but count and just boop, that's what I do. And that's, if you want to do that. If you don't want to talk, I'm good at not talking. And if you want to, listen to something and tune me out, it's no worries for me.
You make a great point, because there is a tension between pushing and protecting
Yes.
a runner as you pace them, and being able to read the difference between a runner who really needs to be pushed through a wall that the runner doesn't want to push through, or a runner that you really need to protect. And that's definitely a skill that not everyone has. And if you haven't been through some of those dark times, it's difficult to interpret what those signs are.
And I respect that too. I had a great race in this Badwater Salton Sea race. And we started out at the Salton Sea and then ran across the Mojave Desert. And you end up at mile 40 going from road to trail. And the hike is about 8 miles, but it's 4,000 feet, jumping choyas and super steep. And I went up a mile up that trail and I was so sick. I have not thrown up in a race in years. And I was so violently sick for about 3 or 4 minutes of vomiting. I can't even explain it to you. And my teammate, Chris Hill, who's a tremendous triathlete, who was doing very well on the climb. He's a really good fast hiker. He just said, you got to calm yourself down. And he calmed me down. And so that was something that I needed at that point from in this case, a teammate. He really he said, your heartbeat spiked. You're trying to do too much. You're pushing yourself too hard. You just need to get a grip, dude, and just get over yourself. And so I sat down on a rock and tried to figure out what I could eat. And then I had enough water left that I was able to sip water for a while. And eventually I was fine. And by the time I got up to the road, I had 30 miles of road. I didn't even take my trail shoes off because my road shoes had melted. I didn't have a pair of road shoes. And I was clicking off 9-10 minute miles consistently all the way to the end all of it on like a 4,500 foot ascent. And I passed 16 people. And I thought, there's no way I can possibly do this when I was out throwing up. I thought my race is probably over at this point. Chris is going to carry me out. He's carried me out once from a race where I DNF'd at Southern States 200 last year. And so I get that the pacer is someone who's trying to protect, but also making sure that you have what you need. And whatever you need, I'm there. I'll be there and I'll show up and I'll do it. So I'll try.
Fantastic. So I do know that part of our segment that you're going to be pacing, we're definitely going to be going through the night. And that's sometimes a different component. It's a different experience when you're in the dark with just a headlamp or a waist lamp or both shining on the trail in front of you and you're literally following or ahead of the runner, whichever. So is there anything unique in your mind in terms of the night running, the night pacing?
Yeah, I love night running actually. And It's taken me a while to get down my illumination, but I think that's a big part of it. I have terrible eyesight, and I will likely, at least the first time and maybe the second time when I pace for you, I will likely have contact lenses in, and I have bifocals and so on. I mean, it's kind of sad how bad my eyes are, but I'll probably have those in rather than glasses, just because I think it'll save me from getting too much sweat in them and so on. I have been able to understand that I'm not like a lot of other runners. I need a ton of illumination. And so I have an extremely bright headlamp, and I have multiple lithium batteries that I can pop them in 10 seconds. I have them at the ready. So I don't worry about like, oh, well, maybe battery life's not good or something. I blaze away at maximum lumens the whole night. And I have a lot of experience doing it, from races like the Race Across Scotland. I had to test it out. I finished on the fourth night, and that's just something you learn. So I'm comfortable, very comfortable, whether we're talking and you want to talk, which is great. You're one of the more interesting people anywhere in any profession. We can talk a lot about jury instructions or judges or whatever you want to talk about. But if you just want to tune out and not listen to me, I'm happy doing that. I've got the tunes ready to go, and if those aren't working for me, I've got Henry Kissinger locked and loaded at all times, as Mark knows. That's my go-to whenever, as in the Cowboy 200. When the wheels are falling off for me, I just put Henry Kissinger in, and that voice I'm back in 1713 at the Treaty of Westphalia. It's all good. I'm happy.
Fantastic. No, I'm looking forward to the unending conversation, because you can entertain a person for many miles. But I will agree with you that the light, the illumination, the brighter the light, the better it is for me. And I think it's true. I see on this program, this show right now, that two older gentlemen, I won't say old because I'm older than both of you guys, but two older gentlemen have glasses on, and they're also lawyers. Okay.
Yep.
There is something that ties the two together. And I was told in law school that regardless of what your eyesight is now, it'll be worse by the time you graduate from law school, because they're going to make you read like crazy.
Yes.
And I think that's true for most attorneys. They just have bad eyesight. It is the way it is. It's part of the profession. Troy, your podcast is called Chasing the Cutoff, and there is a very interesting YouTube video that is coming out tomorrow, April 23rd, produced by Aravaipa Running. The film director is Dylan Harris.
Oh, yeah.
And I forget now the name of it, but it could be something like Chasing the Cutoff, but it's really focused on the 2025 Cocodona. And they centered their characters on the last people that were trying to beat the cutoff and get into the finish line before the final cutoff. So I haven't seen it. I've seen some highlights of it, and it looks like a fascinating program. It's something that I'm definitely going to be watching tomorrow. But in terms of your podcast, Chasing the Cutoff, with that title, you're really not looking at least the audience that's listening to this, they're not elite front of the pack athletes. These are the people that are in the middle or in the back or fighting against the clock, or maybe where a pacer isn't just company, but potentially the pacer is the difference between finishing and a DNF. So of the guests that have been on your podcast, and from all you've heard from them and learned from them and your experience in the 200-mile distance races, what does a pacer actually do at that moment when really the pacer is there to try to save that runner's race?
Well, it's interesting with Chasing the Cutoff. It's intended as a double entendre, if you will, because it's aimed at people 40 and over who are very successful professionally, but also do extreme sports. And in that sense, it's quite different. You have people like an Ellen Hart-Pena, who is probably the very best woman in the world right now in triathlon over the age of 65, the best. So she was on the show. But you have someone like Echo Parkhurst last week, who's 6 years sober. She's a Navajo woman who's been able to turn her entire life around because she quit drinking and started to go back to her traditional Navajo roots, and ended up winning the Navajo Nation Endurance Challenge 12-hour race the last time around. And so you just think about it as, and of course, you've graced us with your presence as well. You just think about who you're trying to appeal to, and we all have different missions we're trying to perform. A lot of what I'm trying to do is to connect with a network and to build a network of people. I'm not trying to monetize. I'm not trying to celebrate elites or even tell the story of people who are struggling in terms of how they finish a race. We all struggle with races. And otherwise, what good is this sport? Who cares about it? But people's resilience and their creativity, and above all, their willingness to not give up. So getting to your question, I know you have this indomitable spirit. I mean, and the thing I love about you, among many things, is that you have DNF'd and you don't, I mean, you care, you learn from it, but you don't let that get you down. And I know what that's like. I've lived that. And so when you do a race, your reaction is, I'm going to learn as much as I can. I'm going to plan for it, prepare for it. And then if it doesn't work out, maybe I'll do it again. I'll go back to Thailand. I'll do whatever I have to do. And that's the spirit of the sport. That's about how do you chase the cutoff, not necessarily literally having to chase it, because usually you're so far ahead of the cutoff, it probably doesn't even enter your mind. It's about the fact that to be blunt with you, you're 69 years old and you're doing what we all aspire to do. I aspire to live and look to someone like you and actually to you as an example of how to live a big part of my life. And I want other people to see that as well. So for a pacer, I just feel like, again, it's Ruth. Whatever you need to go, wherever you need to go, wherever you have to lie down or stand up, I'll be there to try to help that. That's it. It's about your race. I'm glad to be along for the ride. I'm glad to get to have a crew chief that obviously knows more about crewing than anything I'll ever know. And JJ, heck, I teared up when you're talking about your dad. My gosh. Don't see any of my kids here crewing me. I love them both, but it's the last thing they'd ever want to do. So I love it.
Troy, so happy that you're part of our team. I'm really glad that you've joined us for sure. You're going to be a great part of this team and getting this old 69-year-old to Flagstaff and the finish line.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it very much, Paul.
So this is the All-Star 2026 Cocodona crew, and this is why the Cocodona race is possible. 250 miles is not a solo effort, and it never was. So you guys, thank you for being here. Thank you for what you're doing and what you're about to do. And I'll see you all at Cocodona. Let me just do a little segue here. I've got a few notes here, and then I'm open to any questions that anybody has. So just so you guys know, I actually have some goals for this race. Usually the goal is just getting across the finish line, but I actually have some specific goals beyond that I'm going to share with you. CJ and JJ will tell you that normally I don't do this, but I'm doing it for this race because I think I've worked really hard and I'd like to at least see if I can achieve these. They're optimistic goals for sure, but I don't care. It's like Courtney DeWalter said the other day, just cut the brake lines and go, okay? So my primary goal is to finish a sub 105 race, okay? That basically crosses the finish line at 1 o'clock in the afternoon on Friday. To do that, I'm going to have to shave 8 hours off my best time, which is 1:13. It can be done, okay? And my secondary goal is to actually be on the podium for my age group, the 60 to 69 age group. So keep those in mind when you're pushing me out of aid stations. For split times, I will share with everyone within the next couple of days the actual split times for each aid station, what time I plan to be there, how long I plan to be in that aid station, and what time I plan to get out of that aid station. So that'll give you some kind of idea. And those splits will be taped onto the wall inside the crew vehicle so that you can always refer to it. In fact, it'll have a column that you can enter the actual time that I arrived and the actual time that I left, which I would appreciate it if someone would keep track of that as well, because when I come into an aid station, it's nice to have somebody set the alarm for, let's say it's going to be a 15-minute aid station, set the alarm and see if we can beat that clock and beat it out of that aid station. For this, there are 3 major aid stations that I'm looking for. One is going to be Whiskey Row, and that's where Troy picks me up, but that's going to be a major aid station because I'm going to try to get from the start line to Whiskey Row without a lot of sleep. I might drop down for 15 minutes at Camp Kippa, but beyond that, I'm going to try to push through because if I follow my pacing chart, I should come into Whiskey Row before noon on Tuesday. We start Monday morning at 5 a.m., so I should be into Whiskey Row before noon on Tuesday. That's going to be a major station where I'm going to drop down for maybe 45, 60 minutes of sleep in the crew vehicle. The second one will be Mingus Mountain, which is always sort of a main aid station for me because I can come in there. We've just climbed up Mingus Mountain. It's been a tough one. And I actually take advantage of the shower at Mingus Mountain to get a full reset, clean up the body, get new clothes on, new shoes on, the whole ball of wax, and then head for Jerome. And I think that's where Jillian actually takes over the pacing duties from Troy at that point. And then the third main station is going to be Munds Park, and that's where I believe Jillian's going to hand it off to Mark. And that's going to be a key one because we've come through Sedona, we've done the climb out of Sedona up to Schnebly Hill, and then we've done that long, very long Schnebly Hill to Munds Park section. I mean, it's not a hard section. It's just at that stage in the race, if I can get a run walk going, I'm going to pat myself on the back. My second point is expect the unexpected. Stuff is going to happen out there. It happens every time. And the beauty of CJ and JJ, and I know both Mark, you and Troy, you just adjust and you figure it out on the fly because sometimes stuff is going to happen that we don't expect. And my pacing philosophy is basically, I prefer oftentimes to be in the front because I know what my pace is going to be. But oftentimes I'm really flexible about that. Like I know when we went through the Dells last year, I think JJ was pacing me through that. And it was during the day. And I asked JJ if he could take the lead. It was somewhat difficult for me to pick out those white dots on the rock. And sometimes that's going to be helpful for me, for like you, Troy, to be able to take the lead to that section and pick out those dots and try to follow those dots so we get through the Dells. But it's a play it by ear kind of deal, and I'm not hardcore on one way or the other. It's just whatever works at the time. I do like the run-walk strategy. It's amazing how much time you can make up if you just build a few runs into your walking. Not necessarily climbing like Mingus Mountain or climbing up on the Cocodona Plateau, but if it's relatively flat and if it's runnable, a run-walk method seems to me to work really, really well. Trail dirt naps. I love trail dirt naps. I did 17 last year. I'm trying to go for the 8-minute dirt nap. A fellow runner, Andrea Moore, told me that I needed to stop doing the 10-minute naps because it takes me 2 minutes to wake up. She says, limit your naps to 8 minutes and then you'll be out of here by 10 minutes. So I love dirt naps. So there might be times where I'm really sleepy and the caffeine doesn't even work. And I'll tell my pacer, whoever the person is, okay, within the next kilometer, I'm going to be looking for the right place to drop down. And when I find that place, I'm dropping. And oftentimes I can drop and be asleep within 30 seconds. I'll usually set my alarm, my iPhone, for whatever the time is, 8 minutes. The pacer can feel free to sleep with me or stay awake, whatever works for you. I'm totally okay with either way. But the rest is definitely part of the strategy here. Navigation, number one job of the pacers to keep me on course. I definitely have gone off course multiple times. And if we ever do go off course, we call that extreme ownership. We're both at fault.
Hey, pause you real quick about navigation.
Yeah.
So will we be able to get the GPX files? I mean, those of us who are not in the race. And I might need some help. I might need some help in making sure that I have that properly. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, for example, the GPX file is on the Cocodona 250 website. It's in, I believe, CalTopo.
I've got it up. I downloaded it while we're talking.
Okay. CJ will definitely help you with that for sure. If you do have the ability to put it on your watch,
I'll definitely.
That's always a good thing too. And if you have if your watch does the deviation alerts, like if you go off track of the trail, that's always a great thing too. Jillian, who is not here, she is really good at keeping me on course. Honestly, that's the number one job of the pacers, keeping you on course, because I can make some stupid mistakes out there and go off course. And once you're off course, you go, well, you know what? Bonus miles. You can't get worried about it. Just turn around and go back. The beauty of Cocodona 250, they have race command who are watching literally every runner. Last year, I went off course between Deer Pass and Sedona by about a quarter of a mile. And on the iPhone, I'm getting text messages from Race Command asking me, are you sure you're on course?
Wow.
We see that you're off course. Now, I always keep the silencer on so I don't hear the text message. I need to remember that during the race to keep that on, because they will text you. A couple of years, 2-3 years ago, I stepped off the course to do a biological break. While I'm doing the biological break, I get a text from Race Command. Are you sure you're on course? So they are watching. They are the best in the world when it comes to tracking their runners. The other thing I'd ask for you if you're pacing is to know the aid station exit. I've had experiences in the past where the pacer and the runner leave, pace, and the runner says, which way do I go? And the pacer has no idea.
Ugh.
Okay. Before I get there, sort of walk through the exit like this, which way does this trail go when we leave? So that when I leave, all my runner has to do is follow me. And then usually, I think probably you do this, Troy, and you probably do this as well as Mark, within 1 or 2 kilometers of arriving at the aid station, I'm talking out loud, talking through what is my plan for that aid station. Oftentimes I'll have my recording playing, okay, what are the things we need to hit at this aid station? What are we looking for? Is this a major aid station? Is this a sleep station? What kind of food are we looking for? Do we need to resupply ourselves with salt tablets? I'm walking through those things and what the order is. Okay, first thing I need to do is take care of my feet, get a new pair of shoes, new socks, whatever it might be. Every time within 1 or 2 kilometers, we got to walk through what the plan is when we come in so that we do it efficiently. And then next on my list is charging, okay? I know JJ and I just talked about this not too long ago, how important it is for charging all the electronics, not only the runner, but the pacers as well. And CJ's really good at that. JJ's really good at that, is making sure as soon as you come in, the first thing that CJ asks for me is give me all your electronics. Give me your iPhone, give me your Coros watch, give me whatever it is that has to be charged up. Give me everything. And he starts charging it as soon as we walk into the aid station. And so that's critical because there's nothing worse than running out of light in the middle of the night. Ooh, baby, I've done that before and it's not fun. It's crazy, especially when you've lost your mind. And the last thing I would say is the mindset. The mindset we're going into this is we never quit. What was that ultra marathon we ran together in Colorado? Never Summer. Our motto at Never Summer was, we're going to die before we DNF, or something to that effect. Okay, but we're not going to DNF. They're going to have to drag our body out of here before we quit. There's a really good runner who ran the Summit 200. His name is Jackson Wolf. He's run a lot of ultra marathons, and you may have crossed him. Jackson is a character, and at the Summit 200 last year in 2025, Jackson just walked off the course and he quit. And he was telling CJ and myself about the experience, and he used a word that he described himself as being, and it's a 5-letter word that starts with a P and has 2 S's in it. And he says, I was a simple coward, okay, for walking off that course. Now he's back for the Summit 200, but there is nothing worse than walking off a course when you have time and you have not been pulled off the course. There is no bigger regret than that. So we take 1 kilometer at a time, 1 aid station at a time, 1 section at a time, and we don't quit. We're going to get to Flagstaff. We're going to get to that finish line. Okay. Anybody else, any questions, comments, or thoughts?
Paul, thank you so much I'm going to need to sign off.
Okay. Troy, thank you so much.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see everybody. And JJ, such a privilege to meet you. And Mark, I'm looking forward to seeing you in person. It'd be awesome.
Yeah, me too. Troy, let me, before you go, I want to say thank you. Thank you that you helped me do one major thing that without your suggestion, I would not literally be here. When we spoke, you said you identified yourself as an athlete. And after we hung up and after I finished that episode, man, that haunted me for days. I'm like, wait a minute. I have the permission. I can do that. I am an athlete, just as you said. So thank you for that. I appreciate you, man. I can't wait to meet you in person.
Vice versa.
Thank you, Troy.
Thank you, Paul.
See you Tuesday.
Looking forward to it.
Okay, take care. Okay, I think we're good, guys, unless you got any questions.
Can't wait.
It's going to be fun. Have a great night, everybody.
You too. I'll talk to you soon.
Okay.
Thank you. See you
Talk
guys.
to you later.
Bye-bye.